Psycho Schematics. Today's topic for this video, I have a feeling this is going to trigger a few hardcore NFL fans. Who cares? We're going to talk about it anyway. The Patriots dynasty. Now, this video is going to be about the best roster built in the entire dynasty. And in my opinion, it's the 2014 New England Patriots. Now, I know there's going to be plenty of people who are going to disagree with this, including some Patriots fans that are going to disagree with this. But you already know I got my facts ready for this war. So if you're going to disagree, you wait to hear what I have to say. And then if you think my argument it doesn't suffice, bring it on. But in this case, in this video, I'm going to be constructing my argument for why I believe out of all the rosters constructed during the Patriots dynasty, that the 2014 New England Patriots was the best and overall most balanced roster they've ever constructed. And this video is going to go over the players that they have, the schemes that they use with these type of players that they had on that roster, and overall just the concept of construction of that roster and why I believe it was the best overall roster out of their entire dynasty. You ready? Let's get into it. Psycho Schematics. 2014 Patriots had a very rich and diverse attack in terms of talent and overall game plan scheme on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Now, what I mean by that is there were so many different variations and ways of attack in their scheme where they could use their talent in order to utilize mismatches or just configure game plan strategies that could take advantage of their overall talents, abilities within the game plan. And the thing about New England Patriots is, looking at the roster over the years, they had Tom Brady leading the helm, taking advantage of an amoeba-style West Coast offensive attack. A solid offensive line helping to block and protect for the run game, the pass game. An elite tight end, Rob Gronkowski, who was an excellent route runner, could run block, had excellent technique as a blocker, was great at running deep routes and actually extending his arms at the apex of his jump in order to outcompete defenders for the ball at the height of the jump, and could use his excellent size to be able to box out defenders and leap in midair in order to catch passes in the red zone. Shifty, quick, sharp change of direction wide receiver, and Julian Edelman, who was considered a top slot wide receiver in that time. A strong, bruising, tall power back with Garrett Blunt. A shifty, quick receiving running back in Shane Vereen they can use in short routes. Offensively speaking, with the level of diversity and complication and the amount of options within the offense that they had, what ended up happening is it created numerous ways that they could go down the field within their game plan based off of the amount of talent they had, the roster they had, and the general IQ, high IQ of their lead quarterback, obviously Brady. So what that ultimately does to an offense is it just creates more complexity and more options to be able to move down the field and create offense. Now, honestly, the only real weakness I saw within their offense is they lacked a true, consistent deep threat. And the funny thing about that is Rob Gronkowski was really a good deep threat. He wasn't exactly fast, but his size and his ability to jump at the apex height of his jump in order to outcompete defenders is what made him a solid deep threat. So in reality, when you look at the totality of their offensive roster and their way of play and their style of play, you're thinking, okay, well, the fact that they didn't have a big deep threat or a major deep threat was an issue. But in reality, they kind of had a deep threat. It's just that they had to use him in a certain way in order for it to exemplify that. So overall, their offense didn't really have a true weakness, especially especially when you factor in the fact that it's an amoeba-style West Coast, which basically means Tom Brady can shift and morph and adapt and call any play from the playbook that he needs to in an audible situation. So the offense really didn't have a weakness based on what I saw. Now for the defensive side of the ball. 2014 Patriots defensive roster was overall a pretty versatile roster. They had a decent amount of talent across the board. I think the best part of their roster may have been their linebacker core. Dante Hightower, Ninkovich, Gerard Mayo, they had a pretty good linebacker core. But overall, their defensive roster, based on what I looked at tape and what I was watching in terms of their skill set, they didn't have many weaknesses either. And their secondary was pretty decent too. As a matter of fact, the only weakness I found in their defensive roster was probably their strong safety, because their free safety was Devin McCourty. And as we all know, Devin McCourty is a solid player. So overall, the Patriots 2014 defensive roster was also very solid. And I think the best player on that roster based on performance was ultimately Chandler Jones, because he set the tone as their top pass rusher on the defensive side of the ball. And the second best player on their defensive roster that year was Darrelle Revis, because Darrelle Revis was a shutdown corner. They had a top 10 pass rusher by the name of Chandler Jones who impacted the game. Vince Wilfork was still a high-grade defensive tackle with a good run stuffer who could occasionally pass rush. Darrelle Revis was an elite corner in 2014, and if you disagree with that, I have evidence and proof and stats to back it up. Darrelle Revis was still elite. Dante Hightower was an athletic, intelligent, inside linebacker that was typically at the right place at the right time, understood the schemes that Bill Belichick was running, and was a versatile defender. Rob Ninkovich was a sturdy, intelligent, versatile defender for the Patriots, and overall did a good job understanding Belichick's schemes as well. Brandon Browner was a tall, physical corner that could cover tall wide receivers and tight ends. Logan Ryan was an underrated slot cornerback that overall had the technique, skill, speed, and understanding of Belichick's defense to have a good impact within the game and be able to cover some of the league's best overall slot wide receivers and handle them well in coverage. Devin McCourty was a high-grade free safety that showed intelligence, high IQ, athletic ability, decent speed for the position, the ability to read the quarterback's eyes, survey the field, understand what he was reading from an offensive perspective, and then attack the ball and play like a ball hawk and make plays for the defense in moments and situations where they really need to make plays and get turnovers. For an overview of 2014 Patriots defense, overall, it was a defensive roster that was built to be able to handle multiple schemes, multiple situations against multiple types of offenses. They had the dominant bull-like nose tackle in Wilfork, who wasn't in his prime but could still clog the lanes and still had the athleticism and technique to be able to rush the passer from the interior gaps. They still had an excellent pass rusher on the exterior with Jones. They had a linebacker core that was intelligent, versatile, understood how to execute Bill Belichick's scheme, which was a very unique and diverse scheme on defense, which ultimately takes some defenders some time to learn, but they executed it well because they understood the scheme and had years of time under Bill Belichick's tutelage. And their secondary was versatile. They had an elite corner, Revis, yes, he was still elite during the time, not the stats to prove it. Logan Ryan, who was a shifty, fast, athletic corner that could handle the shorter, faster wide receivers. They had Brandon Brown, who was a tall, physical, bully-like corner who could handle tight ends and tall wide receivers. So as I just said, their secondary was versatile and unique in the fact that they could handle multiple styles of wide receivers. And they had Devin McCourty, a high-graded free safety, out towards the top and for cover 3, cover 2, cover 4 situations, and had the athleticism, speed, ball hawk, logic, and skill to be able to make plays out in the defense. So overall, it was a solid defense and versatile. Now that I've gave you an overview of the offensive and defensive factors of the 2014 Patriots, now I'll give you a greater detailed explanation for why I think it's the best overall roster in comparison to all the other roster years of their dynasty era. Number one, if you think about the other years where they were winning championships, 2005, 2003, 2001, a lot of Patriots fans and other fans of the NFL that watch the games will think, oh yeah, those rosters are better. Well, here's the thing about that. Their defense was elite in those years, especially in the years like 2005. But overall, if you look at their roster, their offense wasn't as efficient. It didn't have as many options. It wasn't as versatile as the 2014 Patriots. And remember, I said this is the best overall roster they've ever had in terms of their dynasty era. And it shows because their offense really didn't have any weaknesses besides an outside deep threat. But like I said before, they had an interior deep threat, Gronkowski. So that made up for it, really. And on defense, they didn't really have any weaknesses, except for maybe the strong safety. But I don't even think it was a real weakness. Chung, they knew how to use Chung. Chung was more of a box defender. He'd swoop in, he'd attack, he'd blitz, and on occasion, he'd play man coverage. And he played it well under Belichick's scheme, because Belichick knew how to use him. So if you really analyze the 2014 roster, you can't honestly say throughout this era of their dynasty that they had any other roster that was as versatile, had as much depth, had as much unique ability to be able to change and shift their scheme based off of their overall total roster and the amount of versatility and flexibility with the roster as you could say the 2014 Patriots did. 2, if you really think about it, they performed very well in the playoffs against really good talent. Not to mention, they defeated a near dynasty. The Seahawks, LOB, Legion of Boom. As a matter of fact, a lot of people were thinking that Legion of Boom was going to win that game. And somehow the Patriots found a way to come back, well, mainly Brady, of course, from a 10-point deficit against a legendary defense. And they held their own against a quarterback that was playing very well in Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson will eventually be a Hall of Famer himself. And they found a way to hold their own against him in the first half and ultimately keep him in check and use their schemes and use their techniques and zone coverage and other tactics to minimize his effectiveness as a runner. Because as we all know, the football fans at least, Russell Wilson as a runner can be very dangerous. And they were able to adjust their schemes, their tactics, and their techniques to keep them at bay and ultimately find a way to win the game in the end. Another thing is, if you think that the 2008 Patriots, even though they didn't win the Super Bowl, had a better roster, well, think again. Just think about it. Their offense was explosive. Absolutely, their offense was very explosive, very versatile. But their defense was not that good. Their talent from the defensive roster was limited in terms of depth. They didn't really have an elite pass rusher at the time. Yeah, sure, Vince Wilfork was there, but they didn't really have an outside pass rusher, an exterior pass rusher or defensive end to be able to really pressure off the edge. So all they had to do was try to double team Wilfork if they really need to, and they didn't really have any other players that were good enough to really cause efficient pressure under certain situations. So you can't say the 2008 Patriots either, because that team was mainly offense. Like I said before, I can pinpoint clear weaknesses in some of the other teams' rosters on the Patriots dynasty era. You can't really do that for the 2014 Patriots if you're really being honest with yourself. Think about that for a minute. 2014 Patriots' ability to use multiple schemes, multiple tactics, have versatile linebackers, 2 pass rushers that can actually do damage, and 1 pass rusher that was actually more adept at stopping the run. I'm referring to Wilfork. The fact that they had 2 safeties that all understood their roles, the coach knew how to use both of them, and the fact that there was minimal weaknesses, if barely any, on this roster. And you can't really say that about most of the other teams during their dynasty era. You can't really say that. 2014 Patriots roster was easily the most complete roster they ever came up with, period. Yes, they weren't as dominant as you'd like them to be, but facts are their roster was well put together, very well put together, a very intelligent, articulately built roster. If you really understand the way the game is played in the modern era, that roster could have competed with almost anybody, period, because it was so versatile and it had so many different factors of the type of players they could defend, the type of players that they could beat in coverage for their offensive perspective, the fact that they had an offense that was built around their intelligent, savvy, Hall of Fame veteran, and the fact that they had a defense that was built around their ability to adjust, adapt on the fly, and had the players that were versatile enough and smart enough and intelligent enough to be able to understand how to do that and how to execute under Bill Belichick's scheme and vision. So that alone, with all the other factors that I brought up, should prove that the 2014 New England Patriots roster was the best roster in their dynasty era, period. But if you still think that this argument wasn't good enough and that you thought I was missing a few factors, then please chime in, give your opinion, state your reasoning, and you better have your facts ready. Because if you don't have your facts ready, I'm going to tear you up. And it's that simple. So that's the main points of this video. I think I made my points very clearly, very distinctly, and I got to my point. And overall, curious to see what type of arguments you'll come up with, because I already know there will be some people with their preconceived notions and their own biases that are going to try to argue anyway. So we'll see what type of arguments you come up with. I'm very curious to hear them and see the arguments that you come up with, and then we'll revisit this. All right? Well, with that being said, if you like this video, smash that like button, crush that like button, destroy that like button. If you thought this video was extremely informative, like it was, so I brought out the facts, I dished out the details, then share it. And if you enjoyed all the other videos that I've made so far, believe me, there are a lot more on the way. Don't worry about it. I got y'all covered. And with that being said, I'm out. Psycho Schematic.